We're looking now at the buying and selling information. There's one thing getting all of this, but what use is it if I have access to this information? Where do I buy and sell it? Where do I trade? Where's the marketplace? Where's this with Black Stock Exchange that Paul's talking about? They're called carding forums, generally. They've got some other different types of names, but generally they're called carding forums. Again, you go to Google, you go to YouTube, and you type in carding. You'll find out how to shear a sheep, but you'll also find out how to actually buy and sell personally identifiable information at the end of the day. Most of them want to avoid being scammed themselves, so they have some sort of test to let you in, to find out that you genuinely have real information for sale. So they get a sample of the information that you're trying to sell them and so on like that. Half of them are English, and the rest of them are basically Arabic, Vietnamese, and Russian and so on. There's some URLs I put there on some of the sample sites that you could actually go and see. They disappear quite regularly, but they come back. That's what they look like when you go into the actual sites themselves, just to give you an idea. There's lots of them available out there. Now, before I go into the next part, think about it. Say if one of those sites is actually being hanging off one of your web servers, and the European Convention on Cybercrime is ratified. You're now involved in scams, you're involved in crime and all that sort of stuff. So that's where the risk element starts coming in that Pat was talking about as well. And that side, traditional risk. So now I just want to very quickly give you an overview of an economic model of how this traditionally works. This covers most cases around sort of cybercrime. We're all there's different actors with different roles in this, but each individual element of this, for example, say the user, the financial institution, or the supplier, they may actually play a number of different parts in it. But I'll go through an example. They're broken into categories. Like any other economic model, you have wholesalers, you have retailers, and you have independent contractors. So if we look here, and we start off, we've got the acquirer. That's the middle guy. Right? That's the catalyst. He's the one in the middle of all of this chain. And he needs to deal with a supplier. His supplier deals with agents. His agents may develop tools, so he buys crimeware off his agents, or he gets websites developed, phishing websites, or he may deal with malicious insiders. They're all the agents to the supplier, and the acquirer deals with them. They'll then pick a target, and they'll say, okay, the target may be a financial institution, or it may be an organization that they want to get this personally identifiable information for, or this asset that they want to get and they want to sell. So they pick the target, and the victim is the actual entity. So Joe Bloggs, or whatever it happens to be, whose record is about to be stolen or compromised. Okay, they'll also then deal with the carding forum. The carding forum is a trading place, so those websites I just showed you in the previous slides. They'll go to those and they'll deal with carders. They are the traders. They're the guys who buy and sell this information all day long. This is how they make their living, and they make a very good living. 100 grand a month is not a big deal for these guys to be making with this sort of information. Guys who are not even at the top end of this league on this sort of stuff. Those carders will then, in turn, they'll deal with fraudsters. Fraudsters may be the guy who bought 100 credit card details or 100 bank account details or whatever, and he wants to try and use those to defraud maybe a financial institution, get money out of them, apply for a credit card under someone's name because he's done identity theft, whatever it happens to be. He may launder that money through a money mule that we spoke of previously. He may just decide that he wants to buy a load of iPods or iPads or whatever it happens to be, something he can sell for cash and get shipped to a reshipping zone. So again, now the interesting thing is when you look at this model, many of these businesses actually may be legitimate businesses. The reshipping zone, that may be a P.O. box service, that may be a Regis office, that may be your own office that stuff is being delivered to, and nobody knows who comes down to reception and collects that particular package or that particular box, whatever it happens to be, that comes in. So this is where it actually goes into traditional business and where you have to be aware that this stuff happens. So I know that's quite a complex model, so just give you a quick example. This is one I stole from Paul Gillen some time ago, but it's a really good example of showing you how this actually works. And I call this When Harry Met Sally. We have Sally. She works in Celtic Bank Limited, okay, in Ireland. And what I want to emphasize here is the fact that the amount of jurisdictions involved were a very simple crime here. That takes place. And is it a crime is another question up until a point. So she works in a bank somewhere in Ireland. And Harry is in Germany, okay? And they've met on Facebook, which is in the States, and they've fallen in love, okay? Or supposedly there's a romance of some sort going on. And all of a sudden the question comes up and says, I want to come visit you. I want to get some cash together. I understand you work in a bank, Sally. Can you get me a list of information because a friend of mine will give us money for it and I can fly over and meet you, right? Any sort of excuse to get this. And she goes, oh, no, I can't do that. And I say, well, why can't do it? Well, not morally I can't do it. I just technically can't do it because we can't send attachments on our email. Oh, okay. Well, can you put it on a USB key? and post it to me. Oh, no, no, our DLP doesn't allow that. We can't get onto a USB key and get it out of there. Okay, okay, I'll tell you what to do. Why not use a sharing site like RapidShare that's based in Switzerland? Because they do have access to that. It's over port 80 on the internet. She has access to that. And so just upload it onto that site, put a link, and those links, when you put a document up there, you can say, expire in 2 hours, expire in 1 hour, expire whatever, right? So she can put up that document. It's available then anywhere in the world to come down. So Sally uploads the document onto RapidShare, and Harry downloads that document. He now has a list of all the major account holders in that particular bank, Celtic Bank Limited, their names, their addresses, their credit limits, date of births, everything that's on the spreadsheet. Now, for her job role, she has access to this information. So has she broken the law? Who knows? It's all down to internal policy. And I know Paul will speak about some of this earlier on, about the sort of incidents and sort of investigations that will occur when something like this happens. Okay, so now Harry decides to deal with his friend in Eastern Europe who's on a carding forum, and he sells the information. Now, it may go through money mules and so on, but essentially sell the information, and the money goes up to Harry. And Harry wants to get his share back over to Sally, to keep her on the hook, to get more information off her, to be able to sell it. And don't forget, it's sold multiple times. It's not just sold once, this stuff. So it's sold in many different carding forums and so on, and there's a certain freshness to the information and so on. So he sends the money via his money mule, who's in the UK, who uses PayPal, who's in Luxembourg, who then sends the money through the money mule to Western Union in Ireland, which then sends it back over to Sally. So that's how the cash goes over. Okay. Now at this stage, yeah, fair enough. If all that evidence can be collected across all those jurisdictions and all those log files and it becomes proof, maybe you can make a criminal case in relation to proving that a crime has been committed. But if you're a system administrator in Celtic Bank Limited, how are you ever going to know that that file went up onto RapidShare unless you've got sort of proactive controls in place and all those sort of things? So that's an issue. So let's look a little bit at the history of the cybercrime stuff. The daddy of all this is Albert Gonzalez. He was found with over 200 million as well, but he was caught actually doing an ATM fraud by the FBI. He's the guy who did the famous TK Maxx attack and stole over 50 million credit card details. It was also his crew, the dark market were behind things like the Heartland attack and so on. So they've been involved. They're the guys who created this industry. They were the founders of it, if you like. He was caught and arrested by Keith Malarski, who's from the FBI. And he said, okay, you're going to jail unless you get all of the members of your crew to put some VPN software on the machine so we can monitor what they're doing. So Gonzalez says, no problem, we'll put the software on and let's go from there. And when they actually did the arrest, they only got 28 out of 4,000 people. And even today, because of the complexity of these crimes and the efforts involved across multiple jurisdictions and so on, even today, not so long ago, a couple of years ago, which is 6 years or whatever it was after TK Maxx, you find that people had that TK Maxx data, like this guy in Turkey. This is what the sort of the hit list looks like from that original crew. A couple of them been arrested, but a lot of them are still out there, and you can see the different nations they come from as well. I'll put up this slide to give you an example of what this actually looks like. This is a fairly recent stock list or price list, if you like, of how much you can sell the information for online in carding forums. Okay, so if I'm another government that wants to unstabilize another country or their banking system and so on, I can steal a lot of their information. Or if I'm a disgruntled employee, or if I'm working in retail and I want to make more money, or if I'm working in any sort of area where I have access to this person identifiable information, this is the price list to get. So the one I bring your attention to here is the skimmed one, right? Because it's very easy to skim this card data. And people say, oh, well, we've got chip and pin now, you can't do any fraud with this. Well, that's not true. You can actually skim the cards very easily. This is what a skimmer looks like, okay? And the traditional type of skimming that will go on will be, say, for example, a waiter or a waitress will get access to your card, skim it, keep an eye on your PIN number as it goes through and so on. On the right-hand side here, this is an advert, which I cut and paste, which is to sell the skimmers and the writers to create the cloned cards. So for $1,000, you're up and going and you're in business, okay? And you can create these cards. But what tends to happen is that little USB device here on the left, you'll have somebody that skims cards all day long in their retail job or wherever they have access to these credit cards. They go home in the evening, put in the USB cable, they upload it. It's emailed over to, say, America, okay, where they'll write the cards over there. The PIN numbers will come along as well. They can then use them in ATMs where they don't use chip and PIN, so they can take out cash. So obviously there's a lot of good safeguards have gone in around the Payment Service Organisation in recent times to prevent a lot of that, but it still goes on to a certain extent. Okay, that's a very basic one. Then a much more sophisticated one would be something like a pump and dump scam, and we're seeing much more of this. This is where it's actually going mainstream, this sort of stuff. This is where they'll actually hack into brokerage accounts. They'll hack into share trading accounts and so on, and they'll pump up a stock, right, and then sell it. And they obviously already own some of the stock and so on like that. And you've seen lots of stocks that have been killed, generally out of small companies. There's an example there where the share price started at 88 cents, went up to 128, and now it's down to 13 cents because the company essentially is being ruined because they were victims of a pump and dump scam. So they're getting much more sophisticated where they're going, even with DDoS attacks and stuff like that. So what's mainstream?